Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my latest video about what has gone wrong with Barcelona. So obviously, as you would know, we've had two losses in a row, including our biggest ever defeat in the Hansi Flick era. A lot of Barcelona fans are feeling quite humiliated at the moment. And I didn't want to make this video, but I thought I would just speak about my thoughts on what did go wrong and sort of where we can improve and like my sort of thoughts on the whole situation. So before I really, go into it, I want to preface this video by saying that I'm not really that concerned, to be honest. I'm not as worried as a lot of other Barcelona fans are, and as I think a lot of people would think I would be as a Barca fan. Um, and there's a few reasons for that. Obviously, it's a little bit concerning in a sense, but I don't think it's the end of the world. And there's a few main reasons why. The first of them is I think it's really important to, acknowledge the injuries we faced this season. I know it sounds like an excuse. People are going to go on saying, oh, you're Barcelona, one of the biggest teams in the world. Like, you have to have better depth. That's the whole point of having, like, a big squad. But if you look at the caliber of players that we have been missing, I think it is really important to acknowledge. No Rafinha, who I think has been our most important loss, which I'll go into later on in more detail. Yamal obviously wasn't fit, for both games properly. He played the PSG game. You can tell with how, little he affected the second half. It was really, getting to him, the discomfort, and he didn't play the next game against Sevilla, obviously. You got Fermin Lopez, who I think has been really important for us this season, especially with Dani Olmo, which I'll also go into later. He's just been shocking, but that's a topic for later on. Obviously as well, Balde being out, he did play both games, but obviously he didn't start, and I think he made a massive difference for us when he did come on against Sevilla. And also, Juan Garcia too. I think that's also a really big loss. Lewandowski also hasn't been, fully fit the whole season. I actually think, unless I'm wrong, we're yet to play a game with our full front three other than the first game, maybe. Don't quote me on that, I could be wrong. But we haven't had many moments of having our full front three, with Lamine Yamal, Lewandowski, and Rafinha. So that's the main reason. I think it's down to the injuries, not having our full squad. I think if we do have a full squad, we do, perform a bit better across both games, especially the Sevilla game, which we just completely depleted. And I think the second reason, which I'm also why I'm not too concerned necessarily, is the players that have been playing that aren't injured. I just think everyone in general is just in really bad form at the moment. There's a lot of individual mistakes going around. I don't really think it's necessarily a system thing. I know people are going to criticize the high line, which I'll get into later as well. But I think we've just been making a lot of poor errors, man. Like Koundé, that, the ball he gave away in the Sevilla game, he's been pretty poor this season just in general. Dani Olmo, obviously, I think has just basically been hopeless. Like, it looks like we're playing with 10 men whenever he's on the field. I don't know what's gone wrong with him. Ferran Torres, he did well at the start of the season with the absence of Lewandowski, but I think, so far in those last two games necessarily, even though he scored against PSG, I don't think he was impressive. Kubasi hasn't been at his best. I don't know, just a lot of our players individually just aren't looking too good. Pedri and De Jong the last two games have been okay, but not as good as, the highest they reached against Newcastle, for example. I just think it's a pretty unlucky period. I think there's a lot of factors going into why we've performed the way we performed and gotten these two results that a lot of people are concerned about. And talking about injuries too, I think it's just still concerning moving forward because obviously the El Clasico is coming up soon and we're going to be missing Juan Garcia, who also, sorry, I forgot to mention him. He's also a massive loss for the last two games as well. I feel like Tech did a decent job, but, Juan Garcia has just completely changed our team. Having the high line and knowing he's behind a good sweeper keeper makes a massive difference. But yeah, I'll go into more detail, like both the games, PSG and Sevilla separately, and my thoughts on them just in general. But yeah, I'm not necessarily too worried. I think we're yet to use our Gala 11 and, missing so many key players. And obviously it's the international break right now, which is why I'm making this video. And as all Barca fans know, the international break is probably the worst time of the season every single year. First of all, because we're just known notoriously for getting injuries in international football. Even Dani Olmo and Ferran Torres are now apparently feeling discomfort/injuries for Spain, which is horrible. We're always concerned about Pedri, Rafinha, just all our players. We always have problems in international break. It's been okay so far this season, but still not great. And second of all, Barcelona fans, we are arguably the most reactionary fan base in world football. I wouldn't say the most, brain dead ones. I'd say it probably goes to Arsenal. Nick Cook, if you're watching this, that applies to you. But yeah, it's so frustrating, looking at the Barca fan base and some of the overreactions we sort of speak about. Like, I'm seeing people on Twitter at the moment now saying, like, oh, the season's done, just write it off, like, we're finished, Hansi Flick needs to go. I'm like, it's just ridiculous, man. Like, I just don't understand why people are so reactionary. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. Like, I do think the highline is a little bit concerning, but here's the thing though. Like, in the Newcastle game, for example, I thought Hansi Flick, for one of the first times in his tenure, did a really good job to adapt and be pragmatic. I feel like at the end of the game, the last like 15 minutes or so, he brought back the line a little bit and sort of shut up shop a little bit more, which we haven't really seen in the past. Obviously, the Inter Milan moment. And that kind of showed a bit of, tactical prowess, which I haven't seen in that sort of aspect before. But then you look at the PSG game, and we're still playing the high line in the 90th minute when Goncalo Ramos scores the goal. And I guess that leads into just the PSG game in general. I feel like the thing with the PSG game, which I think is also the overarching issue across both games and overall my main point why I think we've been suffering these last two games, is intensity. I think our main problem isn't a system problem, but it's an intensity problem at the moment. I think that, obviously the players have been poor. They haven't shown enough intensity, enough hunger. It looks like everyone's drained and tired. I don't know if that's a result of just, how high octane our football usually is, and everyone's a bit tired from last season and how many games we had to play, or, everyone's just fatigued in general, not in good form. But I think the main problem was intensity. You look at that first half against PSG, I think we were by far the better team. I think we completely dominated the game. We showed a high level of intensity. Even Luis Enrique after the game was talking about how PSG really, really suffered. We really came out there and we gave it to PSG. I think we deserved to be ahead. And I thought going to halftime, we were going to wrap up the game and have a really, really good level. And I think this is the core issue, right? The second half, we came out and it looked like we did not want to be there. PSG, changed their tactics up a bit and they just looked so much better than us. We had nothing going for us. The intensity was basically not there at all. Everyone was kind of jogging. No one really looked like they wanted to win the second ball. It was the 50-50s. And I just think it was horrible. And even going to the Sevilla game, I think that was the main problem. Like, we just didn't have intensity from the very start. I think second half, we did play better in the Sevilla game. We brought on Balde and Eric Garcia, who I think made a massive difference. They, brought a bit more control into the game. They started to, play at a higher intensity. But overall, it looked like we didn't want to be there. It was sluggish, tired. It was just ridiculous. And yeah, like that first half is probably the worst 45 minutes of football we played under Hansi Flick against Sevilla. It was just ridiculous. And that sort of leads back to my point earlier about why I think Rafinha is the most important player in our team. Because Rafinha, the reason he has the captain's armband, which he got at the start of last season before he even started scoring all the goals and getting all the assists that he, is known for now, Rafinha plays every single game like his life depends on it, right? No matter what's happening from minute 1 to minute 90, he'll be running at like full speed as if someone's, has his life on the line for that game. And I think that by Rafinha doing that, that motivates the rest of our team to step up and keep that intensity for the full 90 minutes. The reason we're able to make all those comebacks that we've made in the past, being known as the remontada team, is because of Rafinha, in my opinion. Because no matter what happens, if we're down by 1 goal, 2 goals, 3 goals, 4 goals even, like, you just know Rafinha is going to be working really hard, giving 110%, and that motivates the rest of the team around him to make sure to put in that same effort as well. Rafinha is the leader of our press, and he's the leader of our intensity in our team. And I think that's why he got the captain's armband from Hansi Flick. And I think without him, we sort of lose that leader and that captain on the field of making sure that we give that intensity all game. And I think it's also the, importance of Fermin Lopez as well. I think behind Rafinha, he's probably our next best presser. He's someone who's always active, running really hard, working really hard too. And just in general, like our 3 best pressers in our team are probably Rafinha, Fermin Lopez, and Gavi, I'd say. And all 3 of them were out. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the first 2 games that Rafinha misses are the games that we lose. I think he's just absolutely critical for our team, and I can't believe people don't think he has a place, with Rashford in good form. I just think it's ridiculous. But yeah, just overall, I do think that, a lot of injuries, lack of intensity, which I think will be fixed once the injuries, sort up, especially Rafinha and Fermin Lopez, who should be back for the Girona game, I believe. And also just individual mistakes. Like Dani Olmo, Koundé, Kubasi, they're all going to get better than they are right now. We know the sort of high level they can reach. Maybe not Olmo as much as Koundé and Kubasi over the last year and a bit. But we know that Koundé and Kubasi and Lewandowski as well, like they can reach a high level. They normally are consistent, and I'm sure they'll be able to show it later on. They're just in a bad patch at the moment. And, having Balde back as well, I think is going to be really important. But just moving on back again to the PSG game. As I was saying, just some general notes I made. First half we were probably the best team, probably our best football all season. And then second half, just didn't go too well. And I think as well with that too, Pedri, I did notice Hansi Flick tried something interesting where he subbed Pedri off, brought Bernal on. And I think at one point at the end of the game, Casado also came on. And we had 3 sixes essentially, which I found a bit interesting. I don't know what was sort of happening there, but yeah. And I don't know. It's just a short video, nothing really too big. I'm going to try and get back into making some more regular content as I now have a good setup. As you can maybe tell, I don't know if the quality is going to be better, but I finally got the webcam to work, and I've also got an actual microphone now. Shout out to my girlfriend for getting me this as a gift for my birthday. So hopefully the audio sounds better. And yeah, I don't know. It's been an interesting a couple weeks as a Barca fan. Everything's kind of gone wrong, even with, Madrid doing well, going on top of the league now, and Mbappe's in good form. It's quite interesting. And actually, one more thing I do want to say before I leave as well is Araujo. Man, I think that Sevilla game was probably the worst game of his career in a Barca shirt. And I really don't know what he's going to do moving forward and what Hansi Flick is going to expect of him. I don't know if he has a future in this team long term. I honestly wouldn't be opposed to him, getting a transfer fee and moving out. I do generally think that Kubasi, even though he's been a bit shaky this season, should be one of our starters. And I think that either Eric Garcia or Christensen both deserve to start over Araujo. I think he's just unreliable, and I just think it's pretty rough. And another person I want to talk about as well is Rooney. A lot of people are giving Rooney a lot of flack at the moment. I think he's played well. In the Sevilla game, he did miss 2 pretty clear chances, but I think people expect a bit too much from him. We're so used to Lamine Yamal and the levels he reaches that we think because Rooney isn't as good as him, he's not good. Rooney's a great player. He's, got into some good positions, done well, got a lot of dribbles, a lot of passes. I think he's quite effective for us, and I think he's going to be an important player for us this season. But yeah, the last 2 games, terrible days at the office, but I really don't think Barcelona fans should panic. I generally believe that once our full team is back and we get back in the rhythm, we'll still be able to compete for a treble, for all the trophies, and I think we'll be fine, guys. Just believe in Hansi Flick, believe in the system, believe in the club, Mescue club. I think we'll be fine, guys. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully it's all good. I could, look back at this in a few months' time. I mean, we've lost the Clasico 4-0. We've, lost more group stage games in the Champions League. This could end up being really bad, but I do generally believe that we're fine. And I hope that some players, almost specifically, can find some more form. And I do think we'll be all right. But yeah, thanks, guys. I just want to make this quick little video. Thanks for listening. Hopefully we're all sweet, and I guess we'll see how we go. Take care, guys. Thank you.